What? I understand I got a lot on my mind, a lot on my chest. That's why.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Lloyd Jones with Midnight Comics, and of course, your host for the Indie Breakdown, the show where we break down your favorite indie comic book characters' power, stats, and abilities, and get them ready for an indie versus matchup. So, today we are finally doing something that we have been saying for, saying for a while that we were going to do, and that is redefining power scaling. So, before we actually get started, and man, I got to fix that pop-up that happens on Facebook because it continuously says to back the Tales from Midnight 2 Kickstarter. That is like 2 years old, so I need to fix that. Anyway, let me... Boom, 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 boom. We are finally discussing redefining Give me a second, y'all. Yeah, let me finish sharing this. But yes, so that's the game plan. It's popping up on the Midnight Comics thing, but did not pop up on the Indie Breakdown channel proper. So I am alleviating that. And then one second. All right, we're back. Had to deal with kids for just a moment. So we are finally redefining power scaling. Come through and learn how we're going to be running the database and battles. Okay, so, and of course, this is going to be somewhat interactive, right? So if you guys have any questions or anything of that nature, please, throw your 2 cents in there, okay? Because what we're attempting to do is, again, we're attempting to redefine power scaling within the indie world specifically. So, of course, when you think about power scaling or some shape, form, or fashion of power scaling, right? It could be as convoluted as you want it to be, as we see out there, right? Or it could be as simple as possible, right? So, in some shape, form, or fashion, we've all done it, right? Whether it's, Goku versus Superman, right? Like, oh, well, he should be able to do this, da da da. Or just even as we're watching our favorite TV shows, cartoons, so on and so forth, um, can our hero save the day? Is the Flash fast enough to do X, Y, and Z? And we take what we have and we just speculate the whole time, right? Until the next week's episode and so on and so forth, right? And so when it comes to mainstream characters, mainstream content, it's very, it's easier, I dare say. Easy and hard at the same time. It's easier because there's a lot of information that you can pull from with mainstream content, with Marvel and DC respectively having close to 100 years worth of content. And then, of course, mainly, of course, anime and so on and so forth, decades long amount of data that you can pull from when you're talking about power scaling that. But when it comes to the indie world, right? When it comes to the indie world, we don't have that tenure, right? There are some folks out there, 15 years, 20 years, so on and so forth. But on the consistent scale, when it relates to indie, we don't have that same tenure, right? And so one of the things that I want us to be able to explore is, again, how can we power scale honestly? And that's the big thing. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. How can we power scale honestly what our characters can do, what your characters can do, make it make sense and not disrespect what you guys have going on in the stories, and of course the future of what you guys have going on. One of my favorite examples to use when power scaling, and I'm doing this, a little preface, of course, but also buying some time for some folks to get in here and be a part of the conversation. One of my favorite examples to utilize when it comes to honestly power scaling our characters is if you go back to 1986, Dragon Ball is out, Dragon Ball, mind you, Monkey Boy Goku, right? We're not going to say, oh, well, 30 years from now, he has Ultra Instinct. We ain't talking about 30 years from now. What we're talking about, right, is where my character is now, what my character can currently do within the context of my story. Because that, if we could talk about that honestly and sit back and be like, man, your character could do X, Y, and Z. I can't wait to see how he's going to navigate the various story plot points and so on and so forth. Essentially, that you're going to have in your story. I don't, and if your character can do any and all things in the beginning of the story, that's what's up. But now we still want to learn, well, what kind of threats is he fighting, so on and so forth. But I bring all that up to say again, is that when we're talking about power scaling within the group, we're talking about power scaling stuff within the group. We want to know what you have currently, even if it's not out yet. What do you have currently, so that we can also do like what we do with mainstream stuff: speculate, have fun with it, have our thoughts, try to figure out, well, dang, if this is what he can do, and he runs into an enemy that can do X, Y, and Z. Let's say you got Spider-Man. We're like, oh man, Spider-Man. But then Galactus shows up. How the heck is Spider-Man going to figure that out? That's the fun speculation, stuff like that. We take everything that we've seen Spider-Man do and say, does he have what it takes? Right? What could he do to win? And what would inevitably be the outcome? Which, of course, again, using that example, obviously Galactus wins, right? Unless we have Captain Universe Spider-Man, right? So there's those caveats, there's those discussions. Does he have access to that constantly? So on and so forth. All that fun stuff that we do with mainstream, I want to be able to do with indie. But again, one of the things, especially on the show, but I'm trying to mold something here that works within the group, within the database that we already have. And anybody that's watching that doesn't know, of course, we do have the indiebreakdown.com, the website where the database is, and you can go ahead and check out all the characters that are on there. That current tiering system is going away. It's not going to be what I'm going to introduce today is not going to be so vastly different from what we've experienced. However, is the internet bugging? Okay, there we go. And then y'all, please let me know if the camera or anything kind of jumps out. If you guys can't hear me, please jump in. Let me know. We'll make sure that we can get that going. But all of this to say, and I'm also buying time because my doc is not showing up. We have, okay, come on. Oh, you want me to download it here? No. All right, hold on. Hold up. Wait a minute. So if you guys want to in the background, you don't have to, but if you want to in the background, please head on over to that site, take a look at the characters in the database and the current tiering system, and then we're going to talk about how it's changing. Okay, because, and this is very important, of course, obviously you guys can go back and watch this at any point. It's going to be very important because when we reopen the database, which ideally will be next month, more on that soon. But we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to these things. So, and let me open up the website myself because I do want to do a one-to-one comparison. Now, the power system that we currently use is very akin, or you can find it on things like Versus Battle Wiki, powerscaling.wiki, all of those different sites. So it's not anything completely unknown or, unique per se, right? But now what we're trying to do, now what we're doing is what is going to be the kicker, and again, aligns with the mission that we've been trying to do. We're slowly developing, but what we really want to do, again, that's redefining power scaling. So in power scaling, 9 times out of 10, and again, this was going to be a whole YouTube series, but Tasha made the wonderful point that I don't do good with scripted videos. I do much better just doing a live and having conversations and all that other good stuff. So what we'll end up doing is probably chopping this up and then posting it, so on and so forth. But anyway, small caveat there. But when it comes to power scaling, 9 times out of 10, if you guys visit, again, any of those sites like listed Versus Battle or even our website currently with the tiering system that we have now, you'll see stuff like normal. And I would put it on the screen, but I definitely want to continue to invite you guys to visit indiebreakdown.com, go to the database, and the first thing you're going to see once you pick Nexus or Reckoning is going to be the current tiering system. So if you guys want to read along with me, whatever, but we're just going to kind of, you know what? I ain't going to do y'all like that. I'm not gonna do y'all like that. Let me just pull it up and do it that way. So let me share my screen. Chrome tab. Here we go. Can y'all see that? Come on, baby. All right. So let's head on back. All right. So current tiering systems, again, you'll see this on any number of things, right? What you'll see is 9 times out of 10, we'll just kind of read through it here together, like normal, below average humans, right? So there's the tier, and then there's 3 tiers under it, which again, that sort of varies when you go out there and look around. But one of the common aspects when you see on any tiering system when it comes to power scaling is it always ends up talking about destructive capability, right? And so you see nuclear, right? Town level destruction, city level destruction, mountain level destruction, all fine and dandy, right? Again, going up, so on and so forth, right? Cosmic, universal level destruction, all this, it's all about the destructive capability of these characters, right? And then we flip on the flip side, what we end up doing is, and I'll go to it here, then we go to our power stats, and the power stats just ends up doing what? Talking more about the destructive capability, but also, of course, dives a little bit more in depth on things like speed, intelligence, fightability, and stuff like that. But I find it redundant. I do find it redundant. And again, it's not just ours here within the group. It's wherever you go when it comes to that, right? And so why not now, then, you leave the power stats for describing how capable or strong they are. But then let's go back, and I will announce officially what it's called here in a second. But why not introduce a means of showcasing where they operate and how they operate, right? And so I'm reminded of a video that we did a while back discussing street tier characters. And essentially there was some confusion, right? The confusion being specifically in the image, to add some context, the image was Moomin Rider, right? One Punch Man, Eraserhead, Spider-Man, Batman, Daredevil, I want to say Punisher. And I asked the question, right? Do you guys consider all of these street level characters? And, there was good discussion, but the understanding or the thought process to sub in the conversation was, well, no, because Spider-Man and Eraserhead have powers, they shouldn't be considered street tier per se, right? And how do we alleviate that confusion, right? Because just because somebody has powers does not remove them from a tier setting or category, right? Or at the very least, even if you consider that in other power scaling sources, right? That's not how we're going to do it, right? If you operate at a street level, right? How do you operate? Where do you operate? You're not going to see Eraserhead protected an entire continent, right? You're not going to see Moomin Rider pull up to a fight against, you name it, right? Again, my example earlier, Galactus and Spider-Man. You're not going to see them pull up in that kind of context. So where do they operate? How do they operate? What I'm essentially is getting ready to introduce here as it relates to the indie breakdown is something that I call the state of being system, right? And so with that, let me actually open my doc up here for that. I won't have it on screen or anything like that. We'll make our necessary changes and publish this proper, soon. But, and it's not going to be too incredibly different or crazy to where you can't cross-reference these, right? But instead of normal, you have baseline. Now, what is the difference, right? Whereas normal on how it's set up now, and again, just to repreface, like it's set up on many other power scaling sites, right? The very basis versus Battle Wiki. You have below average humans, again, talking about what's currently there. Normal levels of human strength and conditions, and then 10A, higher physical capabilities than average humans, right? But then we go to superhuman, and we start with peak enhanced human, and now we're still talking about people that are capable of destroying a large wall, capable of destroying a large room or apartment. And again, you can argue that maybe that tier 10, that normal, is somewhat a state of being situation where we're just talking about what it is that that normal person kind of sits at. In this new system, and again, we'll kind of go through each one really quick. So this time around, 10C would be a civilian, just a regular person trying to survive. Foggy Nelson, Aunt May, Lois Lane. We have side characters in our universes, right? If we were to add them to the database, that's what they'd be. The man in the chair sometimes is just a regular person that just Hey, I'm here to help. I just happen to pull up, or somebody just happened to pull up with a metal pipe, and boom, I helped the hero out real quick, right? You got 10B, capable human, skilled and trained, but still human. Who is that? The Question, Rorschach, those type of characters. They're still regular. They're capable. They could do a thing or two, but they're not they're not all that different, right? Then you have peak human, which is, well, Batman, right? And so now you're like, well, wait a second. Don't you feel like Batman should be higher on the totem pole? No, he's a regular guy. But what sets Foggy Nelson, The Question, and Batman apart? That's what the power stats we talk about, right? So now we're not trying to um, that was odd. So for whatever reason, it just shut me out. All right. But yeah, so instead of trying to rectify several things here, right? Instead of trying to figure out, well, how do you navigate that? Very base, they're human. They're human. Do they have special abilities? No. No. Smart, studied, trained. All right. These are the attributes that we go over in the power stats, which more on that in a little bit, right? But we're gonna roll right through here. And again, I hope I'm not breezing by it too fast. I do invite conversation as well. So please, 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 if you have any comments on what we're trying to build out here, if it doesn't make sense, if you have questions about certain things, if you want to know how I would tier a mainstream character based on this system that I am currently creating, let's do it. Let's talk about it. So next level would be enhanced, right? And now in comparison, our tier 9 that's currently on the system right now is superhuman, which I read a second ago, starting at 9C. And I would put it back on screen, but for whatever reason it cut out. Well, you know what? Let's try it one more time. If it cuts out again, then I will leave it alone. But we'll go from there. So here this is again. All right, so there's the tier system again that's currently up on there. So currently it's tier 9, superhuman, and then it would be 9C, peak enhanced human, Olympic level. 9B would be capable of destroying a huge wall or a large wall. 9A, capable of destroying a large room or apartment, right? Now, in the new tiering system, tier 9 would be enhanced. Somebody that's technologically, cybernetically augmented, right? So who is that, right? We start at 9C with somebody that has a basic upgrade. It's just they got equipment. You know what I'm saying? Like the base part of their equipment in order for them to operate, that's Falcon, right? And again, some things are subject to change, right? We can even go as far as to say, well, Mega Man is a little bit more intense, but somebody, Misty Knight, right? Somebody that just got their arm switched out or something like that. Some very base level upgrade cybernetic situation. Second, 9B, combat modified. That's an Iron Man, right? He has created a suit for high threat environments, right? That's what that would be, right? And then 9A, Apex augmented, right? And so that is your RoboCops, that is your cyborgs, that's your Genos from One Punch Man, right? That have just been so completely altered that they are something almost other than human, right? They've almost crossed a threshold, right? I would go as far as to say maybe even the androids, right? They're humans, that is cyborgs, right? In the manga they're cyborgs, but in the show we know they're androids. But they have been so totally augmented that they stand above an Iron Man who's just wearing a suit. A Misty Knight who just has essentially a robotic arm, a prosthetic, right? So that's where that stops. Now again, have we talked about anybody that has powers yet? Born with something different? No, not yet. So how do we quantify that? So again, if we go back to tier 8 on the original thing, we go to urban now. Somebody that's able to do small to large building destruction, can cause a city block level destruction. So as you can tell already between the tiers that we've done so far, we haven't touched on any battle capabilities, how much they can output, so on and so forth, because it's not important yet, right? And so now the tier 8 for this new system, again, I call it the state of being. I really am kind of proud of that, Dave. State of being system, right? So tier 8 is meta powers. So now we're talking about somebody. Now here's the kicker, and I'm prefacing now because the next one that I said, next tier I say, is going to be like, wait, what? So meta powers is tier 8. So somebody that's gained power through science, accidents, or external forces. So 8C would be an emerging meta who, again, that would be the thing. It would be Ian Peak from Batman Beyond. In case you guys don't remember who Ian Peak was, he had a belt or a suit that had made him intangible, and then eventually it went haywire. He essentially, bless his heart, just was intangible, started falling through the planet. Batman Beyond was dark. But somebody that's not quite in full control. And of course, we could argue about the thing all day, but he can't turn the doggone thing on and off, right? He's just stuck that way. That is what it is, right? So he gained powers through an accident, science, external forces, accidents, so on and so forth. Those would be my examples in that category, right? Next up, a volatile meta. Somebody that has unpredictable power and untamed force. I'm obviously putting Hulk, I'm putting Sentry in that type of field because it's just unbridled power, right? And again, we can make the argument that at some point in Hulk's mythos series, oh, he gained some semblance of control, so on and so forth. But to be completely honest, I'm using mainstream as a kind of one-to-one to help you guys understand or have a kind of anchor point, if you would. However, when we start talking about indie, and again, we don't have those decades, those near a century amount of backstory and content and feats and retcons and all this other stuff, that's not an issue that we're going to run into. When we have characters, so in regards to us, volatile, unpredictable power, untamed force, I would put our character at Monty. She doesn't know how to control her powers to its fullest, right? She still wakes up and things are in fire around her. She hasn't tamed it yet. So she would fall into that category, right? And honestly, to be completely honest, you can say, well, no. In the original issue 1, and again, this is me again, we're talking, you got 2 issues of it. In the version that we portray in Tales from Midnight 1, she would be an 8B. But when Tasha wrote issue 1, we went back a little further than we did in her first showing. So in that showing, she would be an 8C, right? But again, that's going through rewrites and retcons, right? But regardless, right, everybody's not going to be going through that. So where is she now for us? She'd be an 8C. She does not know what she's doing. The spark is lit, but the fire isn't controlled. That's an emerging meta, right? And then lastly, we have 8A, a stable meta, somebody whose power is honed through mastery and use. Spider-Man, Flash, Static. Those are the characters, right? Those are examples of characters that have complete control over their meta abilities. Is there still more to learn? Can they train these things up? So on and so forth. Absolutely. Can they unlock new things? Absolutely. But we're not watching Spider-Man grow and learn how to use his abilities anymore. He's got it. He's got it under control. If you talk about Static within, the context of any comic book series, not of course, the show as we watch him grow, but okay, at this point he knows what he's doing, right? Flash, need I say more? Again, so meta powers in regards to this new tiering system is based on people who have gained their powers through science, an accident, or external forces. Now, here we go with this one. This is going to be an interesting point of conversation. Again, throw in your 2 cents at any point. Let me know what you think. But this next one, tier 7, is mutant. Now, again, I know I'm reading off of something different right now. What you're seeing right now on the screen is our old tiering system. All of this is going to be updated soon. I am discussing how I'm redefining power scaling specifically for the indie world. And so what you'll be able to do is, as I'm reading these out loud, you'll notice that the system is not the same. And again, I want to preface for anybody that's just now coming in tiering systems far and wide, this one and ones on various websites like Versus Battle Wiki, 9 times out of 10, you are going to be seeing them break down or tiering someone's destructive capability, and then we go to the power stats and start discussing things like the intelligence, the durability, the speed, so on and so forth. But it's redundant to talk about what each person what they're capable of in 2 separate categories. Let's have one to tell us what are they, how do they operate, and then have the power stats talk about specifically what they're capable of. So moving right along, our tier 7 and this tier 7, are the same. This tier 7 talks about nuclear levels of destruction. I'm not going to keep going back to this sheet here because now we have completely exceeded um, this thought process now, right? And so now we're talking about mutants, people born with superhuman abilities or inhuman physiology. And we could even go as far as to say maybe entities or beings born with superhuman abilities or inhuman physiology. So, who is a latent mutant? Somebody that has power beneath the surface, somebody that doesn't quite, how to word it? I mean, I guess we've already worded it. It's latent abilities, right? So that's your Oob from Dragon Ball, right? He has power that he was born with, right? He's a reincarnation of Boo, right? He doesn't know how to use it yet, but as we've seen in whichever canon you guys want to utilize, whether it's Dragon Ball Super, whether it's old school Z, or even GT, not GT because we see him fully acclimated to his powers in there. But Dragon Ball Super during the Moral arc, it took the Grand Supreme Kai popping up on him. It's like, hey, just raise your hand to the sky, and his energy just kind of flowed out. We see him trying to fight Goku at the end of Z and learning how to tap into that power and stuff, but it's something that lies within him. If we want to go back all the way to the beginning of Z, with Gohan learning how to use these powers, his powers, and unlocking them and so on and so forth, he would fall under this, to use an example, right? So any character born with powers, right? Um, the next one would be like a developed mutant. So quite honestly, simply put any of the characters from My Hero Academia. All right, throw Bakugo in there. Throw, again, any character that was born with abilities, and we're watching them. It's developed. We're watching them develop. By the end of the series, they are developed mutants. They have tamed their powers. They have an understanding. They're disciplined. They got it going on. Then we have the apex mutant, one that evolution perfected, nature's anomaly. They are. What's going on, Ralph? How's it going, dude? Hope you're doing all right. We are finally discussing how we're redefining power scaling. So, anybody that's just jumping in, essentially, our new tiering system will include what I'm saying right now. So, the old is going away. We have a new system now. So, when we open to power scaling back up, and again, we'll have some associated posts, examples, other lives, workshops, some stuff, so on and so forth, to discuss it further, right? But we are going to be developed. We have developed what I call the state of being tier system. And so we're going to be focusing on who and what exactly is your character. And then the power stat system will now discuss. And there's some new verbiage and categories on that now because we ran into some issues, right? And let me pause really quick. And yeah, so anyway, the last thing, Apex Mutant, like Storm has a complete mastery and understanding of what all she does. She is like on the verge of godhood at this point, right? So that would be somebody right there again, anybody that's born with powers, full mastery and understanding of what they could do. That's how it's going to be kind of laid out. But we're going to intermission really quick and talk about another thing that kind of inspired this shift. Of course, we've always wanted to redefine power scaling, but it took us a while to really figure out under what context, or not context, but under what route we should go in regards to what that looks like, right? So we ran into issues in the past where, we would have a character, we'd see a character, or somebody would submit a character that could exist in more places than one. Their speed, they could exist in multiple places, right? At once, right? But then in the book, they get shot by a regular bullet. And you're like, well, if you're so fast that you exist in multiple places at once, then you should be faster than the bullet. You should be faster than the react. You should be fast enough. Your reaction speed, your perception should be so advanced now at this point, because we're talking about agility specifically, that this stat was, that shouldn't happen, right? And so there was some misconceptions, right, in regards to what one's character could do, right? So I remember that. I think that was Absolver versus Hopebreaker, and I think whether by mistake or just thinking about more than what was already out, um, Absolver had faster than, or agility wise, able to exist in multiple places at once, but he was able to get shot. So that doesn't quite work. right? And so what we're trying to do is alleviate any possible confusion when you guys are inputting data for the database, and make sure like, hey, my character was born with superhuman abilities, right? Now we're about to get into those higher levels here in a moment, right? But how does your character operate? Where do they operate? We're talking about the state of being in a character when it comes to this tiering list going forward, right? And again, when we get to the power stats, right, that's where we'll truly dive into at that point how capable your character actually is, right? And so we're going to move forward. Intermission done. Next up, we have supernatural, which, right, anybody that's magic infused, spirit wielders, divine conduits, that type of thing. Now, and again, I'm using mainstream examples as kind of an anchor point for you to kind of think about where your character would be. But again, there's a lot of caveats when it comes to mainstream. There's decades of content and retcons and stuff like that. So things are subject to, whatever. I say that prefacing here. We have at 6C for this one, awakened mystic. Magic finds them, not the other way around, right? So who is that? Who would that be? Well, I consider that Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate, right? He inherently doesn't have magic, but the item that he utilized, right? The helmet of Naboo, right? He happened across it, and he has been the host, the what have you, from jump, right? And so that's what we kind of mean. Did this happen by happenstance? Did this person seek it out and gain these powers that's infused in them, or is magic just kind of working through them through items and so on and so forth? So somebody that's kind of awakened, and then again, another example, not magic wise, right? But another example is I was just watching a video essentially talking about, well, several characters, but it ended up talking about Black Lightning and his origin. Initially, he used a belt, right? He had an electromagnetic belt that allowed him to utilize electricity. So, under that context, right, he wouldn't be somebody that's a mutant under our tiering system initially, right? He would be somebody that it would be meta powers, right? It was some external force that gave him the powers, or not even actually, it would be enhanced because it was a piece of technology. But then what ends up happening is it breaks. Now that's an accident. Now he would be somebody with meta powers because it broke, and then it changed his DNA to a point where he was able to channel that. So back to magic, Kent Nelson does not inherently have magic, but say something happens to the helmet in Naboo, right? And Kent Nelson just has the power of Dr. Fate. That's when we could start seeing those shifts. But anyway, again, once you start having these type of thought processes when it comes to where exactly does your character lie? Will it change down the line? Of course, of course. But right now, and again, if we're going based on the incarnations of a lot of characters, where were they? Where did they start? That's what we want to think about. Where are they right now, not what they will be when it comes to this stuff. Again, we have two separate categories for this. Nexus and Reckoning, chart accordingly, right? But where is your character right now? We're going to move forward here. Practiced, mystic, skilled in rituals, relics, and spells. Constantine, easy, right? Constantine, need I say more, right? Very skilled, knows exactly what he's doing, so on and so forth. He could arguably be in this next section, but I wanted to save this spot specifically for your boy Doctor Strange, which is a high mystic, able to channel ancient or divine magic, especially if we're talking about old school Doctor Strange with the Vishanti, right? He could do anything magic wise, right? I think another good example would be Zatanna back in 6B, would be there. I would dare say that in 6A, another good character would be Raven. I would dare say, I would dare say Raven, older, right, is definitely high up on the totem pole. But anyway, not talking about mainstream necessarily. Where does your character lie? Do they fully understand magic? Are they fully attuned with whatever they are harnessing in the magical realm, right? Because there are clear differences between the capabilities of, again, Zatanna versus a Doctor Strange, right? Versus a Constantine and a Raven, right? There's clear differences in regards to that. So moving on to our new tier 5, and again, not going to switch back and forth between the current tier system and this, because again, at this point now, we've hammered in the point that most tiering systems are about destructive capability. We're moving from that and talking once more about where do they stand. And now we're entering a level that is beyond human. Everything prior to this has been humans, really. But now, tier 5 is ascendant, right? Beings who have surpassed humanity through transformation or rebirth, right? So you have post-human, which is our 5C. Somebody like Swamp Thing, right? You he was a guy, once upon a time, right? Clayface, right? Those type of characters. And so again, it's one of those. They started off as human, and again, ascendant. You think about, oh, they're gods now. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Let's see. Where would a Tritian be placed on the tier if, when he was bestowed his powers, he immediately knew how to use all his powers? Due to our primitive minds, the sword of justice assimilated very easily. And we're going to get there. We're actually going to get there. I think that is getting ready to be... I want to say it's actually on this tier right here, right? He would be tier 5 ascendant, beings who have surpassed humanity through transformation or rebirth. And so 5B is reality warp. That's Dr. Manhattan. Let's keep it a buck, right? Power twists the world around them. I mean, Dr. Manhattan is just pure energy, right? He exists in multiple timelines. He is able to, he is everywhere and nowhere at the same time, right? He's warped. He was a human. He transformed, reborn as something more than, right? Lastly, 5A, God touched, walks among mortals as a living legend. This is where I believe a Tritian would be, right? He's transformed to something surpassing that. Now, again, tier 5 is not, again, the tier 5 that we have now versus the tier 5 that was. Where was a Tritian technically? A Tritian technically in the old system was a tier 3, cosmic level, which he still is a cosmic level being. But when we talk about the state of being, right, he would be an ascendant. He falls into that category, so on and so forth. And another reason why we're doing this, another brief intermission, I'm glad you came in here. Another brief intermission is one of the issues that we ran into, and Ralph is very familiar with this. There's not a lot of characters in tier 3. There's not a lot of characters in the cosmic level that he could face off against. So with this new system, this allows other characters that might exist, right? Now we can have all these tiers kind of go against each other, but now we can really start discussing the nuance of each person's character, right? Because it's crazy to think about Clayface and a Tritian being in the same category, right? Clayface is nowhere near the strength of a Tritian, right? But they are something other than human, right? They have been reborn as something other than, right? Not Pantheon. He has no clue how to use his powers when he first gets them, as his primordial celestial power are not compatible with this human biology, which I love the similarities between some of you guys' characters, because in this is part of some of the discussion that we were going to have on the show, but like Tritian, Pantheon, and the Protector and All-Star, like that would be and Jupiter Man would be a mean crossover. Each one given an orb, an artifact, a sword, a crystal, right, with the powers that they're imbued with to become who they are in a sense. And I would love to see that kind of crossover. Because, man, alternate universes, like instead of the Sword of Justice, it was the Orb of Theon. Instead of the Orb of Theon, it was the crystal from the... Ronnie's going to kick my butt. Oh, God. I'm mad that I don't remember the beings that gave them their powers, but it's literally on the tip of my tongue. But regardless, there's a video breakdown on it. Go check it out then. But anywho, but yeah, I think Tritian would be that tier 5, right? Because he's been reborn. And come to think of it, honestly, again, now that I've made the example, I believe Pantheon would probably be in that category as well, right? Through transformation and rebirth, he has now transformed into something other than human, right? He has ascended beyond just this mortal coil, if you would. Next up, we have tier 4, transcendent, right? And so 4C, starting from the lowest tier here, they're a high observer, right? That's your monitors. That's your watchers, right? It's coming. Union of Justice and Henosis Authority. That's what I like to hear. See, guys, I love what we're doing here in this group. I love seeing collaboration, the camaraderie, right? The team ups, the crossovers. I love being able to see these relationships form and what you guys are going to be able to do. Cinderhawk and freaking Solar the Sovereign. Come on, that's gonna be that's gonna be tough. Okay. Y'all got some good stuff coming. So anyway, like, it's cool to be able to see these things and see it form and stuff like that. And I look forward to continuing to see more of these team ups, more of the camaraderie, more. Again, the group started off with versus battles, right? Because that's an icebreaker I use in conversation, in situations when I'm meeting new people, right? You know, we're at a video game event, a gaming event, or what have you, and it's like, oh, I bet you can't beat me at this. Oh, what's that? Well, who you play as? But now we start talking about interest. Oh, why you play as this character? What got you started? How long you been playing this? So on and so forth. But it all starts with that initial challenge, right? And so that was kind of the mindset when I created this group, and even created the show in the first place, is to get those conversations going. And again, at the end of the day, through this visibility, man, everybody's able to see each other, support one another, and gosh, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. So, intermission over, back to transcendent beings, right? So again, that's your watchers, that's your monitors. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tavis had a character called Pinnacle, that would fall into that category. I know Concrete has like Velez, right? Not Velez. Velez is the bad guy. Cosmosa. There we go. They have Cosmosa, who kind of sits on the outskirts there, watching what's going on in the universe as a whole, right? That's those characters there. Next up, you have the cosmic governors, right? Those that oversee the laws of the universe. That's your living tribunals. That's the specter, the literal wrath of God, or the spirit of vengeance, rather. Excuse me. There's laws. They uphold them, right? Then 4A, a multiform entity, something that exists in all places, times, or states. I put Phoenix Force, again, as our mainstream kind of equivalent, because there's only one Phoenix Force. If I'm not mistaken, there's only one Phoenix Force that exists throughout the multiverse that is their state of being and stuff like that, which I feel like either continues to get retconned or forgotten, because you'll see these stories like going back a good deal, like Marvel Zombies. You'll see Phoenix being taken over by, you saw Jean Grey as the Phoenix, as a zombie in that in between when they were about to head back to Earth. And it's just like, but the Phoenix Force can't be corrupted. Phoenix Force is just to save you out, but I got you. But anyway, that's what I would kind of put there. I would dare say, no, I almost said that like the Sword of Justice would be that, but no, the Sword of Justice is a little higher up on the tier. If I could speak boldly, I think. And I'll tell you where in a second. But yeah, a multiform entity, one that just exists everywhere, right? So, next up, tier 3, mythic, right? Legends who shaped early civilizations or origin myths across planes, right? So we start with 3C. We have the Herald of Power. Needless to say, there we go. The Overseer, the Cosmic Oligarchy, the Pillars of the Omniverse. Right. So that would be, oh gosh, you have a character. His name, Invictus. Invictus, right? Would Invictus be that? Because he was like a part of that at one point, right? The Pathfinders and God will keep our reality stable. All magic come from them. What tier will they be? The Pathfinders keep our reality stable, that would probably be in the next tiers that we're about to discuss. Either they're a transcendent being that we just talked about, right? They see they would have to interfere. So they would oversee the laws of reality, right? Um, all magic falls under them. I think it's in the next couple tiers I'm about to discuss. I think it's going to be in the next. You know what? I think they literally would be tier 1. And we'll talk about that in a second specifically. But we'll talk about it in a second. So back to Mythic, right? And so, Silver Surfer is a herald. That's somebody that's heralding in, the great one that's about to appear. Ebony Maw, right? Was always the mouthpiece that popped up, at least in the MCU, for Thanos, right? The herald of great power, right? 3B is Eternal Champion. Their story repeats in all cultures. That's the Eternals. That's needless to say. World Shaper, creating nations, realities, or histories, right? Again, that is your Odin-esque characters that are just these throughout history, right? Now, of course, we're going to say human history right now because that's where that comes from. But whatever that equivalent is to any alien races that you guys might have come up with, eternal beings and stuff that are out there, that's where that kind of stands. And welcome in everybody that's liking and check out the video and throwing their 2 cents in. When we get towards and I'm almost done with the power tiers, right, or the tiering system right now. Again, I call it the state of being tier system that we're creating. So I'll answer all questions at that point as we go through the rest of these. And then we may or may not jump into the power stats proper. But anyway, as long as you guys are interacting, I'll be here all day. But all right, so that's Mythic, right? So again, you'll notice, right? These Mythic examples aren't as, or may not sound as impressive as, we just talked about with Transcendent, right? You're talking about Living Tribunal, the Monitors, that type of thing. I dare say that they're above, right? Silver Surfer, right? But it's not about destructive capability, right? It's not necessarily about how capable that character is. Who are they? Where do they operate? How do they operate? That's what we're discussing right now. Because again, Spider-Man is not the same as Dormammu, right? Now, obviously, there is a strength difference that is there to be discussed. Or let's talk about Calabac versus somebody else from DC. Calabac versus Big Barda, or Big Barda versus Wonder Woman, right? Big Barda is from Apocalypse, if I'm not mistaken. She's from Apocalypse. She's the leader of the Furies. That situation where she operates, how she operates, is completely different than Wonder Woman. Is there similarities, right? Sure, right? But the conditions on Themyscira are completely different situation and circumstances than it is on Apocalypse. Her upbringing, what she is exactly, right? That's all different. Where do they stand, right? So, now again, one could argue the similarities, right? Diana is what all those records, stuff like that, daughter of Zeus, right? So she is a god, part god, so on and so forth. And Big Barda is from a planet where there are new gods, right? So where do they stand? What's the difference, and so on and so forth? Again, in mainstream, you have decades of retcons and situations and stuff like that, but things to think about as indie creators. Where is your character now? What is their state of being? And that's how you'll tier your character here. So, we're moving from Mythic. We're now on Dimensional. Dimensional, so not bound to time, space, and they can travel through timelines, universes, or planes. So, 2C would be dimensionally touched, right? So, power leaks through the cracks of reality. So, Cloak, right? So, again, not the strongest character out there, right? But what is he capable of? He can literally do that. So, Cloak would be in that section. 2B, Plane Jumper, moves through time, worlds, and thought, right? Trigon, easily. Now, you could be like, hey, isn't he supernatural? Yeah, in a sense, but remember, we discussed supernatural specifically, we stuck on the human side of it, right? Now, again, insert your characters accordingly and stuff like that, but our verbiage directly was, hey, this is magically infused humans. Now, obviously, nobody's arguing when you get to Mythic, Odin is using magic, Thor is using magic, those type of characters are using magic. But again, that's why you got to consistently ask those questions. Who are they? How do they operate? Where do they operate? And that's how you're going to be like, oh, my character would obviously be here, right? Let's move forward. Dimensional Weaver shapes realities like fabric. Name. The anti-monitors were really just destroying everything, but I would probably place a character like, matter of fact, we saw the Batman Who Laughs once he got Dr. Manhattan's powers, and I think they slick beat Perpetua at that point. But like they remade a whole universe, and it was this weird kind of situation that was happening during that point in time where I think, oh, he hadn't even gotten the powers yet. I think Perpetua had just won at that point, and then Wonder Woman killed, spoilers for a couple-year-old story arc, she killed the Batman Who Laughs, and then they put his brain inside that Dr. Manhattan variant, so on and so forth. But then, so point being, Earth was shifted, the universe was shifted. You're talking about when they break the source, well, all these type of things. Do you have a character that's able to rewrite reality? I would dare say, would Franklin Richards be there? I don't think I know he can create things, but Tasha's more the Marvel person than me. So forgive my lack of knowledge on that, but maybe we'll just throw him in there, right? Next, but yeah, I think I'd probably say Perpetua level characters would be in that dimensional weaver, somebody that is completely able to shape reality. Dare I say, on a very low scale, no, that was only the stuff on Earth. She didn't change the entire verse. I was gonna say Wanda when she did the No More Mutant situation, but no, I'll stick to my initial kind of off the dome Perpetua situation. So if you got a character that's able to completely rewrite reality, that's where they come. So, and you know what? I think Cheddar I think I said that right. They keep reality stable. We could argue that they would be dimensional. I think I would need a little bit more data, right? Do they shape it or they just uphold it, right? Because if they're just kind of making sure it's there, right? I mean, they would probably fall under tier 4, the one that we were discussing at that point, a transcendent being, a cosmic governor. And you know what? Talking it out just now, that made it make sense. So 4B, cosmic governor, to answer your question about the Pathfinders. Unless we get a little bit more data that kind of, elaborates more on what they can do, they would be tier 4B. Invictus, former member of the Cosmic Oligarchy, Universal Consumption. Okay, so he was a former member of it. Okay, bet. And then Sledge, I'll admit that my character Sledge is multifaceted enough that he needed this kind of overhaul. Outstanding. And then, yeah, so again, once we start talking about what your characters can do, how do they operate, where do they operate, so on and so forth, they just uphold it. Oh yeah, so yeah, they would be considered a cosmic governor. Yeah. So yeah, and that's it. They just make sure that everything is as it should and act accordingly, right? My two examples at that point in time was Living Tribunal and the Spectre, right? They will get involved if necessary. They're not the watcher, my assumption, right? They make sure by upholding instead of just watching reality, right? They make sure stuff stays in order. So we're on our last tier now. And I'm going to save power stats for another day because otherwise this video could get much longer than it needs to be, I think. Did you already speak on the changes, the power scaling changes? I am on the last tier now, but obviously we'll go back through it. We'll make some posts accordingly, so on and so forth. And if you have any questions, right, where would your character tier, just off the dome, having a discussion about it. And I'll do a real quick recap of each one. I don't think I'm going to go through each of the sub tiers, but I'll go over the main tiers for you. But the last one, tier 1, and again, anybody that's just jumping in, I will. No. We'll do that in a second. We'll circle back. So, tier 1, the last one here, is conceptual, right? So that is somebody that embodies ideas, truths, or laws. They're not people, not people, the forces, right? So 1C for this would be eternal echo, a whisper in every reality never truly gone. This is the anti-life equation. This is the speed force. This is, if we want to utilize an indie example, this is the sword of justice from Atridian justice, right? These are, they exist throughout. And that's why when and again, I'm going to keep it indie here for a second, right? In any universe, according to Ralph, in regards to Atridian, right, there is justice energy everywhere. It's an eternal thing that exists everywhere. So he is able to pull that energy from every universe, multiverse, timeline, dimension, because it is what we call an eternal echo, right? Same thing with the Speed Force, something that exists completely outside of the multiverse of DC. And that's what all the speedsters are pulling from. It's something that is not confined to the goings on of one universe, right? So that's what that is. I hope that was a good example for that one. 1B, um, abstract avatar, a form by fundamental concepts. Death and eternity would be these things, right? Now, here's a tough one, right? Because, and I use this example. I just talked about the sword of justice, right? The sword of justice. Let's put it this way: justice energy. Again, if I'm going to use India, I'm going to stick with a Trinity right here. I hope you're still watching, Ralph, and I hope I get this right. Okay, so justice energy and the sword of justice are two different things. He's able to pull the justice energy from those various places, but the sword of justice is an avatar, an abstract avatar, a manifestation of that justice energy. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph. But so not to confuse anybody, again, 1C would be the energy itself. 1B would be the manifestation of it itself, right? So the sword of justice has existed since the beginning of time, and it can pull in the energy of justice from all these other verses and so on and so forth. But if I'm not mistaken, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I just have the books, what Ralph said in our interview, there's one sword of justice. But there is justice energy throughout and everywhere. So again, trying to make sure I understand everybody's characters properly before I speak boldly about it, but I think I got that one right. So again, hope I don't confuse, but leaving justice aside, we're talking death and eternity, where there are various characters in various verses that are the very manifestation of these things, right? That's what an abstract avatar would be. And then we have primordial forces, cosmic truths, literal cosmic truths. I would dare say, right, this is the presence, this is the one above all, this is God, right? They are the beginning. They are everything, the end all be all, right? That's it. That is our new tiering system that will be updated in the next couple weeks or so when we get ready to reopen the database. What I am hoping to do, and I will go back through the list really quickly in a second. So hope you're still sticking around, Nathan, here in a second. Is anybody else that might have missed it leading up to the ending there? But yeah, anybody that's already in the database, we're going to reopen it up. We want to make those changes so that everybody's on the one accord. Again, it's not necessarily a one-to-one, but we did keep the tiering system the same, just the verbiage is different, right? So there is still the tier, 3 sub-tiers, and the power stats are still going to be that 1 through 8 system that we had before. Just again, the verbiage is different, the definitions and the categories are different. But for the most part, again, I think it's very easy to understand what we have and what we're going to be changing to. So really quick, the orb is hope, and the orb is what allows Ashton to play with building blocks of creation and Ashton. So right, there we go. Once he got the orb, the omniverse was reworked to fit his new anomaly. So right. So in this case for that, then the orb would be the thing, the concept that is that. Whereas Atridian not Atridian, Jesus Christ. Whereas Pantheon is a transcendent being, because not transcendent. He would be an ascendant being. He would be at tier 5. beings have surpassed humanity through transformation or rebirth. So yeah, Pantheon would be tier 5, whereas the orb proper would be that primordial kind of situation that's happening there, right? So yeah, so that the orb itself is tier 1, Pantheon is other. So again, trying to break it down enough, right, to where now is the orb itself going to be jumping into battles and stuff like that? No, right? But if the orb itself manifested into its own being, right? Now we got another discussion, right? It's like the cosmic cube, right? The cosmic cube is an item, but it also is a being, right? And so in that case, right, if the orb could do that, then now we got a character to put in the database to do other stuff. I don't want to do items per se, so right, so yeah, sounds dope. I like it. But appreciate that. Appreciate that. So yeah, we're doing a state of being system now. So really quick, the idea is baseline. All normal humans are there, right? No supernatural powers, no psychic powers, no enhanced traits. They're just a regular person, right? So that scales from Foggy Nelson, from Daredevil to Batman, right? That's baseline tier. Tier 9 is enhanced. If you got any type of tech, cybernetics, anything, that's where you are. So that's from Misty Knight with her arm all the way up to Cyborg with all of his enhancements, right? Tier 8, meta powers, anybody that got powers through science, accidents, or external forces, that's where meta powers are, right? So that's the Thing to Spider-Man, right? Tier 7 are mutants, anybody born with abilities, right? So you can go Oob to Storm, right? Tier 6, Supernatural, Dr. Fate to Doctor Strange. Ascendant, Swamp Thing, Dr. Manhattan. Tier 4, Transcendent, you're going from the Watchers to the Phoenix Force. And obviously we're gonna have this typed out. We're gonna do all, have all that stuff updated, but that's where we're at with that. Next up is Tier 3, Mythic. So you go from Silver Surfer, Odin. And again, and I'll finish saying the rest of these, and then I'll go back to what I was prefacing earlier, right? Tier 2, Dimensional, Cloak with his abilities, right? To the Anti-Monitor, right? And then Tier 1, Conceptual. We're talking anti-life equation, speed, force, to the presence and one above all. So again, in this system, it's not about destructive capability. It's who they are, how they operate, where they operate. What are they? And then the power stats will be what is the scaling proper. So now how the tiers are laid out, we won't run into issues like we did, unfortunately. Again, I'm using the Trinian a lot as an example. But at Trinian, there's only really 2 people he could face off against in the current tiering system because we were going based off of destructive capability. But now the door is open for him to be able to face off against more characters. And now we get to hear not just how, 2 action figures are duking it out. Now we got to figure out truly, well, how can this character take on this character and it makes sense, right? Is there an answer every time? No, right? That just depends on the scenario, how we use the surroundings, what the items available, what other characters exist in this world that can tap in, so on and so forth. So we're going to try to get a little bit more involved with the matchups as we kind of get further in this process, right? But with this new state of being tiering system, we can actually start not elaborating, but how do I want to say this? I guess more elaborating on what more our characters can do. Even if it is a hopeless scenario situation, right? What can they do? I wrote a small script at the end of season 2 of the Indie Breakdown show proper. And in case you guys don't know, that all of this started as a show where I interviewed 10 creators, do a breakdown, and then at the end of it, we bring everybody back together. Everybody challenges each other. It's this great conversation. I roll a randomizer wheel, and then that decides what characters go against who. And season 2's finale was Avora Lee versus Jupiter Man. If y'all know anything about Jupiter Man, listen, you got to be cut from the cloth, as Lonzo would say, right? You got to be cut from the cloth to stand up to Jupiter Man. Let's keep it a buck. Avora Lee at best is like Deathstroke level. Jupiter Man is literally the embodiment of the Roman gods made whole. you know, so how do you write that? How do you make a good argument and so on and so forth? If you want to know what I wrote, well, definitely check that out. You can visit the website and check out that blog post for that. But yeah, so like, how do we make a decent showing for the characters, make it make sense? And be honest, right? About the capabilities of the characters. And again, I always use this example. If we talk about Goku versus Superman, and we go to 1986 and say Goku versus Superman, we're not going to say that Goku has Ultra Instinct back in '86. He was just a monkey boy that was riding around with the blue head shit, trying to find the Dragon Balls and the pig, right? He didn't have Ultra Instinct. We ain't know he was a Saiyan, so there's no Super Saiyan. Ain't no Kaioken. He ain't even know the Kamehameha wave yet, right? If we go back to old school Superman, he ain't have flight yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can leap tall buildings in a single bound, more powerful than locomotive, faster than a speeding bullet. That type of situation, right? We had a different conversation, right? And so that's what I want. I want us to, where's my character at now, right? And then we can talk again. We'll get to the power sets. That'll be a whole nother live situation. But where is my character? How do they operate, right? How do they operate? Where do they operate? So yeah, that's where we're at. Nathan says, more strategy based now, tactical thinking, scenarios matter and such. Yes. Yes. And one of the things that we said early on that we really wanted to be able to do, when we put a matchup, ideally in the beginning, what we wanted was for everybody to explain to us your ideal scenario. Like, you type out your ideal scenario, how your character wins with the information provided. So take a conversation. If it's Soul versus Acolyte, right? How does Soul win outright? Taking into consideration everything we know Acolyte to be able to do. If I've read his books, which I have, right? I'm checking out, like, okay, he did this, this, and this. He did get knocked on his behind in issue 3, so he's not like completely invulnerable to being knocked down by force. There's a lady that had, one of the children of chaos that had wind abilities, right? So okay, cool. Bet Soul is stronger than that, so he'll be able to knock him down. But the difference is, Acolyte didn't get hurt by that. So is there anything in Soul's arsenal? Let me take a look, support, ask these questions on what they could take, what's that durability, what all they could do, right? And I put all of that in my, this is how he would win. And again, I brought you up a second ago, Nathan, in regards to the story or the script that I wrote for the season 2 finale between Avora Lee and Jupiter Man, right? Let's be real, right? And it's slight spoilers, right? But there's nothing Avora Lee could do to beat Jupiter Man. But how do I still show her in a respectable light and showcase a decent enough fight that's interesting, that's exciting, that can be something that you see as a comic book, but respects the personality, the mission, the drive, the abilities of both characters, keeping them both in characters because they're both heroes, right? So anyway, check that fight out if you guys haven't already. But again, those are the thought processes, right? So can Soul beat Acolyte? Well, let's take all of the data, right? See whether or not each writer, say again, so if me and Lonzo were to write this, right? He writes, here's a whole little real quick, here's how Acolyte would win. I bet, here's how Soul wins, right? Did we take into account what each other can do? How do we know what each other can do outside of conversing with one another, without reading each other's books, without asking those questions and really getting to know the character that you're up against? That's what we want to do within this group. That's one of the things that I still want to get back to within it. There was chaos back in the day with the voting system. The voting system was kind of crazy, but outside the voting system, we do want to revisit that, right? Trash talk and still do it, still do all that when we do the matches and stuff, that when we bring the matches and stuff back. But that's what I want. I want you guys to understand one another's characters and get to know each other's characters, because again, if it's like, hey, well, didn't in your issue 2 X, Y, and Z, and I love that when Hopebreaker versus Absolver happened, right? Because towards the end of that, he was just like, nah, he got his powers from animals and stuff, right? So it tells me that Spiff read Absolver, right? Because outside of, if you just look at the card, you don't know those aspects, right? Which again, we want to keep it as simple as possible, kind of baseline, get the understanding of what they can do, and introduce those conversations so that everybody can get that in-depth knowledge together and it sticks a little better, right? But if you read the books, you know that Absolver gets his powers from utilizing the Vanquished technique that essentially grafts other people's powers and experiences onto himself, right? And so Spiff was able to say, well, can he actually do that? Because in his book, he did X. And it's like, damn, okay, valid point. That's absolutely true, right? And so that's what I want to be able to do when we start discussing, when you guys are discussing why your characters can win, ask those questions. Again, a little harder when you start talking about Nexus characters, um, because you can't back it up with the feats. You have to go based on the cards. But again, now that we're changing the system up, um, the way that we are, right? I think it's going to make it a lot easier. Um, too many people design. Dre says, too many people design their characters for the sole purpose of just beating someone in the group. And you know what? I don't know why I haven't been doing this. I should um go to chat, show on stream. There we go. So too many people design their characters for the sole purpose of just beating someone in the group. A lot of characters have no substance, interesting characters, but no personality or soul, just powerful automatons and a nice suit. And um, yeah. And then that's what Nathan said a little while ago. More strategy based now, strategic, tactical thinking, scenarios matter and such. Yes. But no, very valid point. Very valid point. So, what we're trying to do is avoid that. What we want is to make sure that we build something that truly allows interest to grow, right? That truly allows people to be curious about what your storyline is going to be. Because at the end of the day, right, we're doing the verses, we're doing the events, we're doing all that. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be making sure that there's visibility to your projects, that there's excitement that's growing, so that you can start building out, um, really getting more fans, right? More supporters, more customers, what have you, more believers in your project and excitement around your characters, right? Because no matter where you are in your creative journey, visibility is key. Visibility is key, right? And so the hope is that we focus more, not so much on how strong the characters are, but how interesting the character is, right? What are the struggles that they're going to have to overcome? What are they dealing with personally? What is their ingenuity in a fight, right? We talk so heavy about Batman and how impressive he is, right? We talk about his prep time and all this other stuff. And the thing that makes Batman stand out so much, to the point it's annoying, right? Is because we know he's a regular guy and we just want to know, we know he's going to figure it out. But the exciting part is trying to figure out how he's going to figure it out. That's what makes this whole prep time thing with Batman so intriguing because he's a regular guy that has to figure out with what he has around him how he is going to overcome the challenge he faces, right? But we don't see that in Indy. We don't have the tenure. We don't have that in Indy. So we have to be able to build that interest, build the story, build our characters properly, I think, before we can actually sit there and start doing the most ridiculous situations. And again, our subjective, your story is your story. Don't let anybody tell you what you should do. But be open to advice. Be open to um, feedback, right? So, with that being said, hold on. I see a couple more comments. Rob commented, exactly, Dre. So, it's important for Nexus battles to have books out or an actual handbook and not a sheet of paper where they can just change or add powers to be unstoppable. Yes and no, right? So, Nexus is for those that don't have books. But what I ask for those that are in the Nexus section is to be honest about where your character stands right now. What your character will be. And again, I just used the example, but I will use the example one more time. If we talk about when Superman first came out and when Goku first came out, we're not going to turn around and say, oh, but Superman flies as fast as Superman couldn't fly when he first came out. Oh, man, but Goku's got Ultra Instinct. Goku didn't have Ultra Instinct when it first came out, right? So where's your character in their current iteration? The one that you're going to be introducing them to the world as. Because at the end of the day, we also got brands, right? So if you're just telling me he is God, well, I ain't worried about him saving nobody at no burning apartment. You know what I mean? Like that. What? Tell me. Tell us. Tell everybody that is going to see the character. Honestly, where are they at the start? Again, if they are that strong at the start of the story, help us build that intrigue, right? As you're talking about the characters throughout the week, right? What are they facing, right? And again, we never want to ask for spoilers, right? But I always use Soul. I'll use our own character as an example, right? Soul has the power of two Egyptian deities, Amun and Ra. Problem is he doesn't know how to use their powers. And during the course of his journey, he'll have to face the rest of the Egyptian pantheon as he gains more and more understanding onto who and what he truly is. I spoiled nothing. He's got the powers of the Egyptian gods. He doesn't know how to use it. He's got to fight the rest of the Egyptian pantheon. How is he going to learn? Trial and error, right? He's not the end all be all, but he's more than just a man. You know what I'm saying? So I've given you enough to where it's like, well, damn, okay, wait a second. He has nobody to teach him. He's fighting these people. The world could be at risk, right? Now what? Now what? Was the doorbell ringing? Tosh. Oh. I was like, did you step back outside or something? So. Huh? Oh. So, let me move this comment. But yeah, okay, I see that you said, reckoning my bad. Yeah. I absolutely believe it. Oh, wait, I skipped one. Exactly, Dre, so support for Dex's, blah, blah, blah. At the end, it's about collaboration and introducing our characters to the world. Just put it right there.
More books.
Yeah, all volumes. Yeah, really, that's it. This whole group is about working together so that everybody can gain visibility, right? Because although we're all creators, or a good bit of us in here are creators, right? The idea is we can still pass on knowledge to each other. We can support each other. We can buy each other's books, hence the $1 challenge. But another thing in regards to visibility, the hope is everybody could bring their fans into the fold like we were doing in the beginning with the voting situation. That's why I do really like that still, because it allowed people's fans to be introduced to other publishers, other creators, and again, garner some more excitement for everybody as individual brands and stuff like that. I do want to bring the $1 challenge back, but we got to make it worthwhile if that makes sense, right? We got to make sure that everybody's actually supporting everybody. So let me move this comment here. I agree with Dre. Yeah, at this point, F Batman. The guys at the Super Breakdown will also kind of agree, or would definitely agree with that. They're especially the F prep time situation. What is this?
Trademark stuff.
What? Are we official?
Almost.
No, this isn't it. This is a different one. This is somebody that was trying to get us to do it. Yeah. Yeah. But along with your check. Yeah, we already did that. But yeah. It is still pending. This like a week or so, yeah. Next up, Ralph says, I absolutely believe in world building first and really create the best hero. Yes, absolutely. And that's key. That's absolutely key. Oh, Dre also said, I love bats, but the world is being oversaturated with them. Right. And you run into that, my bad reckoning, yeah, we just read that. Yeah, and that's the problem, right? There's not enough. This is a whole separate conversation slightly, right? But they're so scared to move on from these characters that, yeah, now at this point, we start trying to tell these stories without these characters. They don't really work, right? I will say a story that they took a chance on and it did fantastic was Deceased, right? They killed Batman in the first issue. Again, it's a couple years old now. If you haven't read it, I apologize. But it's the first issue. He got clipped in the first issue. Dang.
Coach
Coach, okay.
and Steph Mon.
Okay, cool. All right. Oh, I'm so excited to read this. He also put another book in there because he got it out late. Yeah, I think it's Sizzle and Boom, but I don't know if it's the next issue of Sizzle and Boom or not. Yeah. So yeah, where were we, guys? I'm sorry, we're getting stuff in the mail, and I'm excited. Dre had said a little earlier, Pantheon is a wide-eyed kid who's trying his best to live up to values that he perceives are too big for him to fulfill. Perfect, right? It gives us an idea of who he is and the things he's running into. That's the nice tagline. Yes, that's the tagline. It's beautiful, right? Yes, Deceased was yes, that is probably one of my favorite ones in recent memory. Absolutely fantastic. Dre said Terry McGinnis and Miles Morales. I'm assuming we're talking about Pantheon in regards to personality, and how he operates as a hero and all of that. And so, yeah, like these are the things, like throughout the week, for those that are still watching, throughout the week, this is what we're looking for, right? Tell us about the character, not just what they're destroying. Tell us about the relationships. Tell us about their day-to-day. Tell us about the adversity that they're going to face, right? You could talk all day about these things, right? So for me, again, we're using Soul as an example. Yes, he's got the power of the Egyptian gods, right? But who is he fighting, right? The thing is, Soul hasn't really fought anybody except for the Egyptian gods. And the first time he fought them, he was like 13, 14. His powers just unlocked. He saved a kid. Anubis is just like, you're messing with the flow in life and death. That kid's supposed to die. And Soul's just like, nah, I'm standing in the gap. No. And so now it's Soul versus Anubis and all of these descendants of Ahmed. Right? And then we see in issue 1, because what I just described was a flashback in issue 2. In issue 1, we see at the end of it, he says, oh my gosh, if Ahmed is back, that can only mean Anubis is back. Right? And so you're like, okay, but he hasn't really had anything on that scale to face. Right? And so again, that journey is, what is he going to do to get stronger? Because regular person, he's washing them, right? But what does that training look like? What does that motivation look like? Is he saving people from bank robbers and all that stuff? No. Because everybody that has powers isn't going to be the paragon of justice, right? Their whole thing is trying to understand where these powers come from, how to truly use these powers without being a danger to those around him. And so the kid that he saved in universe, and I'm diving a little deeper into what's going on so you guys can understand the things I can talk about if we were to post our characters and stuff more. But again, I refrain from that because the idea is, I want to help uplift you guys as best as possible, right? I have a Midnight Comics page to focus on me, right? I want to make sure that D&D Breakdown is not focused on me, right, or any of my stories. I want to make sure that you guys understand each other's stories, right? If you guys got a question about mine, right, obviously I'll post stuff on Sundays and stuff. But this whole group, this show, channel, all this, depending on where you're watching and all this other stuff, it's all about uplifting you guys, making sure that you guys get visibility, making sure that you guys can see success while chasing your passions. Like it's the whole point. That's the whole point. But I know a lot of these Facebook groups die and turn into link graveyards, just full of Kickstarter links, website links. Hey, buy. And the mindset that I want to instill within this group in regards to like promoting your stuff, in case you guys didn't know, like Monday through Saturday, through talking about your characters, by building excitement through your characters, by telling us what it is they're facing and doing and stuff like that, you're promoting, right? But you're not selling. But you're not selling the person. But all week they're just like, oh man, and I've seen this happen, right? Where it's, that sounds interesting. Where can I buy that book? And you didn't say, hey, go visit my website and do this. You just said, hey, my character does X, Y, and Z. My character's going to face X, Y, and Z. Oh, this is where they grew up, X, Y, and Z. Oh man, that resonates with people, right? Then it's like, hey, let me get a link. Absolutely. At that point, send the link, get the sale. But selling all week, Here's my link. Here's my link. Here's my link. Here's my link. It's a telemarketer, bro. You know? So let's Monday through Saturday, you are promoing by talking about your characters. So get excited, get other people excited about the creations that you guys have. Because nobody else is going to be more excited than you. It should be the easiest thing to talk about the things that inspire the creation of the character, the idea of the outfit. Where did that come from? The personality, like you just brought up Terry McGinnis and Miles Morales, right? You have these comparisons, you have these things. Talk heavy about it, right? At the same time, again, everybody, the hope is that we support one another. And also, right, if you guys have purchased books from one another, one of the things that we want to encourage is share that. So many times, and as creators in the space, I'm sure you guys get this feeling, but it's like, man, I'm doing the best I can, right? I'm selling these books, I'm going to conventions, I'm making books and stuff like that. But sometimes it gets a little discouraging. I'm sure. I've had those moments, right? But seeing somebody share that they purchased the book and that they love the book, I can't wait to see the next issue of the book. That reinvigorates immediately, right? So if you guys are supporting one another and you purchase each other's books, we could do this. Yeah. If you guys are supporting one another, those are some posts that I would like to see in the group as well, right? Like, hey, I checked out such and such's book and it was amazing, right? Do that. That's cool. And so ideally, right, somebody be like, oh, okay, that's a bet. Let me get the link to that site. And again, at that point, drop that link, right? But we're not oversaturating the group with links and talking, oh man, just I think I said it to Terrence one time when he went to convention. Share those wins. I do want to see those wins. We're outside, man. Like, everybody is doing great things. Share that with the world, man. So, one last time, Sundays, promo days, I continuously say it, like, share all day long, right? Share all day long on Sundays. Like, I don't care how many times you post. Talk heavy about your stuff. Think about when you're at a convention. Talk heavy about your content, what you have to offer. Just share it. All day Sunday. All day Sunday. And then Monday through Saturday, talk heavy about your characters, the world that you're building. And I know there's concern, and we'll get ready to get out of here in a second. I've seen the comments and the concerns of, I don't want to share too much because I'm afraid somebody is going to steal my character. Nobody's got the vision that you have for your character. So let them try. They're not going to be able to do what you have planned. They don't know. But on top of that, right, the moment you post it, it's timestamped. It's poor man's copyright. You're solid. You're solid. You have proof that this was a thing that was created beforehand. The thing about copyright, if you put money in, you'll get money out, right? If you don't pay for your copyright, you could cease and desist. All the same if somebody steals your idea. But if you put money in to get your stuff copywritten, now you can get some money out of it. Hey, now I'm suing. You stole my stuff. So again, if you put money in, you can put money out. But regardless, the moment you post it, that is yours. It's time-stamped. You're solid. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not no professional. But I do know this from our own stuff, from our own experience, right? So, and also talking, right? We've done several business cards and stuff like that. We've learned quite a bit in regards to that, even having our stuff trademarked and all that other good stuff, having those good conversations. So, share what you're working on. I see another comment in here. Pantheon's first big fight is one-sided. He gets his cheeks absolutely crawled in. Ayo. But there you go, right? It's not about how your character just defeats everything in his path. Now again, are subjective. Whatever your story is your story, right? But these be the more compelling ones. Slit. The next thing I see here as a comment is, we've got to show support. We got to support each other. Excuse me, I swear I can read. We got to support each other. The indie world has the best comics in the world. And I absolutely agree with that. There's no big wigs running stuff behind the scenes. Pure unadulterated imagination and creativity is what leads the indie world. Like, I have so many of y'all's books over here. I think I made a post. It was a while back, and since I've gotten so many more books, but like some of the best stories that I've read in recent memory have truly been indie. I think there's a mainstream story that I am like reading right now and awaiting with bated breath, right? Is the Storm series, bro. Like the Storm series is fire. I finally read Far Sector earlier this year. Absolutely phenomenal. This current Green Lantern, Absolute Green Lantern is fantastic, right? The Absolute series as a whole is fantastic, but Absolute Green Lantern for me is chef's kiss. I love it, right? But it's like a handful in the grand scheme of comic books, whereas indie, one that we talk about so much is Ray Comics. Oh my God. Dark History, Okimist Dark History set the bar. When I say I had a moment when I was like, man, writing comics and I lost some motivation for a little while and stuff like that. I read that and was like, holy cow, I'm back, right? Phenomenal storytelling, right? And so, man, y'all gotta pick up some indie books, bro. Pick up some indie books, surprise each other. You ain't gotta go far. There's so many people in this group, so many awesome creators in this group. Follow those links, support these things. And again, we did the $1 challenge. It may come back soon. Support at the base level, because even if you don't get anything, again, doing that $1, even if you don't get anything from any of these campaigns, you're helping somebody literally just like you, another creator just like you, pursue their passions just like you. Now, ideally, right, go ahead and get a digital copy. Get a digital copy, support them, read the book, and then tell them what you thought about the story. Tell them about it, right? It's not hard. We're all in this thing together. It takes the visibility and actual support, actionable support, tangible support, right? Likes and comments are good, but man, we gotta put $1 in every now and again, people. We gotta actually support each other. And I'm really mimicking just now, unknowingly, or accidentally, or maybe just segued into based on what Ralph said. We gotta support each other. We gotta support each other at the end of the day. Us liking each other's stuff in this group is good, but we got a $1 challenge, and there's people that did not cross the finish line, and we had the power to change that. So I want us to be able to truly make sure that anybody that comes through this group is supported on, loved on, and encouraged to continue this journey. Because unfortunately, we've only been in it next month. Wow, next month will be 5 years that we've been in, and we've seen quite a few people come and go. And it's unfortunate because, man, I'm not dropping any names in that category, but man, there were some really good stories. There were some really good stories that were coming for some of these publishers and creators, and it didn't. They have since stopped. They have since, their endeavor has ended, right, for one reason or another. And it's unfortunate. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. If we can help in any way, I want to make sure that we don't run into that issue at all. Fenadu, and I hope I'm saying your name right, Gago, chapters 1 and 2 are out there free to read. So there you go. There's free books for you guys to read, for each of us to read. And I'm assuming that's Global Comics, right? That's live on. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, if you guys want to, and I love to put my money where my mouth is, right? But me and Tasha have a show on our channel, Midnight Comics, on YouTube. Shameless plug, right? Called What We're Reading. And in that show, we talk about the stories that we're reading. We give a brief kind of walkthrough of the things that we liked about the art, the story, the pacing, right? The lettering, all of that other good stuff. And then we leave the links and stuff down below for you to just click and go to their website. And if they don't have a website, their Instagram, social medias, all of that other stuff so that you can support them. So check out What We're Reading, right? And talk about each other's stories. Because at the end of the day, it's word of mouth and visibility at the end of the day. And who better to share what is going on in the indie world than other indie creators and their fans as they continue to build that out. So anyway, I said this wasn't going to be too long. We kind of divulged away from the power scaling conversation into supporting one another, which isn't a bad thing, because overall that's what this group is going for, is helping each other with visibility, helping support one another, and the continued collaboration and camaraderie that we have come to see within this group. So shouts out to all you guys. Yes, yes. Okay, it is on Global Comics. He said, "Don't let me hit the lottery. The comic industry is screwed." Right. He's like, "Oh, it's done. It's done." But yeah, guys, thank you guys for tuning in, man. Thank you guys for being a part of this community, man. Because it blew up so quick, so quick. So many changes, so many things. It went from a humble YouTube video channel situation to so much more. So I appreciate that about you guys for coming in, supporting the group. Big shouts out to our admins and moderators. So Dre, Lonzo, Tasha, especially T-Law. Appreciate y'all so very much. I am looking forward to implementing these changes to our current power stat system. Again, I have dubbed it the state of being system, state of being tier system. So it's not about the destructive capability of your character, but where they operate, how they operate, and who they are. So take those things into account. Rewatch the video if you need to. Start brainstorming where your character sits on this new tiering system, and stand by, because really soon, we will be introducing, reintroducing, or rather reopening our database. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited and terrified, because this is gonna be a daunting undertaking, because it's a one-man show on that end. So I'm taking all y'all's data, I'm putting it in there and updating and stuff like that. I may be reaching out and leaning on some folks to help me with that, but we'll make a day out of it. It'll be cool. So one last thing, I think I have it on my computer here. Give me just a second. Bear with me. And yeah, once we get out of here, we're gonna be watching that doggone Ironheart. So I don't know if you guys are watching that, so definitely excited about that. Is this what I'm looking for? Is this it? Hold on, y'all. We will end it off with not that. Hold on, y'all. Any last questions or tidbits or anything of that nature before we actually close out this live? You know what? I'm upset because I had a thing for you guys on here and I can't find it. Oh well. That's okay. So we'll go ahead and get ready to end it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you all for joining us on the journey as we finally redefine power scaling in the indie world. Of course, I'm Lloyd Jones from Midnight Comics, and your host for the Indie Breakdown, the show where we break down your favorite indie comic book characters' power stats and abilities. And check out all of Season 3, available at indiebreakdown.com. And stay tuned, because Season 4 is getting ready to start interviewing some amazing creators. So I have my list. Please, if you guys, if you guys didn't see the post, please look through, visit the post, and express your interest. Because even if you don't get picked this time, Season 5 right around the corner as well. So I'm back. Now that we got this sorted out with the redefining situation, now I'm back in the headspace and mind space to get you guys going back on the show. So sign up for Season 4. Forms and stuff will be going out in regards to that soon. And we're going to go ahead and get the thing rocking. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. I truly appreciate you guys. We're going to go ahead and close this thing out. We'll see you guys next time.
Bitch, I'm